Hi, I'm Taylor Mitchell, and I'm a senior here at JSU.
All right. So talk about how you found out you have autism.
Okay, so this might sound like a slightly far-fetched story. Um, I was diagnosed at a young age with ADHD, and then in high school, I had a special ed counselor. I I was in special ed because I had some issues with handwriting, and a special ed counselor come up and basically come out and say, Taylor, you also have all these social delays that are kind of troubling, and you have all this other. There's a very good chance you have Asperger's syndrome. Not long after that, I was actually diagnosed by someone actually qualified that I do have Asperger's syndrome, which is basically just really high functioning autism. So I actually didn't find out till like my senior year of high school. That is because when I was a kid, a lot of doctors didn't understand autism, and it was kind of hard to diagnose, so it didn't really happen at the time. But by the time I was in high school, people were like, "Oh yeah, we might need to actually fix that."
Okay. So can you talk about how you dealt with it when you found out you had autism?
Is badly a good way to say?
Yeah.
I originally handled it kind of badly. I've actually written 2 articles in Chanticleer about this, and originally it was kind of hard for me because I thought this changes my whole life, and it didn't really. It kind of improved my life more than it did anything else. I found out finally what I needed to learn to cope with, and I just finally knew something. I could read stuff, I could educate myself, and I could figure out why I did some of the things I did that I didn't understand before. So that was a really helpful thing for me. And to be honest, there was a video game that kind of helped me cope with it a bit, because they showed the autistic characters can just have regular lives. It's called To the Moon. It's a really good game.
Okay. You said you wrote articles for. You said you wrote articles that had to do with your autism. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
So, April is Autism Awareness Month every year. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize that very much. Though also it's like other things awareness month. Like it's also like, I think, limb difference awareness month, which some people probably think is more important. It kind of is in some levels. But JSU does a really good thing where they light up the library blue in April, except this year, obviously. And so what I wanted to do was partially because I wanted to get my thoughts about my own autism on paper, because that wasn't something I've done. I've talked to people about it, I explained it to people, I helped people understand it, but I never really sat down and wrote about it and got my feelings out about it. And last year, it was also a part of my Nana, who helped me get through it, had recently died. And so part of it was cathartic in that way, is that my Nana had helped me come to terms with my own with my autism diagnosis, and this was something that I could give about something else that helped, and about how she helped. And so it then just kind of became this thing that I wanted to keep doing. So every April, I write an article up in the Chanticleer about autism, just to get people aware, because there's a lot of people that really don't understand it, and I think that's a really bad thing about the way society is because if people have developmental disabilities, they either instantly think people have mental retardation or Down syndrome or something that's like really affects you. And while that's a real thing and that's a hard thing for people to deal with, there's also developmental disorders that aren't that big of a deal, that don't hamper your ability to function that much. And autism can. I don't want to put that down at all. But I wanted people to realize that people with autism are real people, and they're not this Hollywood thing, and they're not this completely vegetable thing. They're just a person who has a different set of challenges that they have to deal with, as opposed to what a normal person does.
Okay, so what are the are there any challenges that you faced, like being here at JSU, being with autism?
A lot of I've at JSU, it's not been as big of a deal as it was like in earlier years. With Asperger's syndrome specifically, as you get older, you learn how to cope with it better, and your symptoms, your outwardly showing symptoms decrease because you just learn little ways to kind of trick people that you're normal. And so for me, it was really harder at the beginning of my life than it is now. But I do get a lot of stereotypes. I do get a lot of people that say, "Oh, you don't really seem autistic," and that kind of thing, which is offensive. But I don't let other people's ignorance bring me down. I just try to educate them about what it's all about. I still have a lot of issues socially. I feel and it's not so much that I don't talk to people, and that talking to people is really hard, and that people notice that. It's the fact that I still know I'm not exactly up to snuff with everyone else, and it's kind of hard putting myself out there sometimes. And sometimes I say the wrong thing, and I just feel bad about it. But I really do feel like I'm a lot better just generally than I used to be.
Okay. So that being said, to finish this off, is there anything you'd like to say to, like, maybe to people that are related to people with autism, or just the people in general that about autism that you think that they need to know?
To people to people with autism or people suffering from autism, I want to say that there is a way to cope with it. It's not a death sentence. There's gonna be challenges no matter what part of the spectrum you're on. But you can always find a way to get something that works for you. Because autism is a very individual thing, and you could be really great, you could be really bad. It's a spectrum. That's why they call it autism spectrum disorder. And so you have to get to the point where you or your family member or whatever can be comfortable where you are in the spectrum. And that's hard, it's rough. It can lead to some really bad stuff in just my own experience, but it can be done. And that's another thing I want people, that's kind of similar to what I want people who don't deal with autism to realize, is that it's a spectrum. Just because someone seems okay doesn't mean that they don't have something they have to deal with. And just because somebody seems like they're not okay doesn't mean they aren't a good person anyway. They just have different challenges than you have, and I think it's important for people to realize that.
All right.